Alright, so let's go ahead and build out the rest of this header. And what I think we're going to do is we're going to have a subheader that kind of runs from the main header and down. Because if we look at the rest of our application, we have this other view that also has the same subheader background but has different components in it. So there's different ways we could do this, but I think the cleanest way is to just create a subheader and place the components inside and then construct that up per view. So that's what we are going to be doing here. So let's head over to our editor and we'll start by creating a subheader folder, and inside we'll create a subheader.jsx components subheader.jsx. Okay, and for now we're going to just have a div with a class and we're going to have a container inside of here. And since we are using modules, it's going to be styles. Love the autocomplete sometimes. You know what? Let's just create the subheader module CSS file in the same directory. And then we're going to have a subheader and a container. So that's going to be our classes. We'll fill them out later. For now, just go back to the subheader and we are going to import styles from subheader module.css. And we'll put in styles subheader and styles container. And then what we want to do is we want to accept props here. So every React component receives props, and there's some built-in ones that are passed down by default. So we are going to say props.children, and we'll need to return this as well. So what this allows us to do is we are just going to take whatever we put inside of the subheader brackets, it's going to be rendered here as the children of this component. So that's where we're going to put all of these components that we're going to build. But for now, let's go back and continue. And we want to style this. So the subheader.css, we want to do background, and we want to do linear gradient to bottom, and then we want to add the variables that we set earlier on. So we have the, let's just check because I don't exactly remember it. So the header gradient top and the header gradient bottom. And while we're here, we might as well add site width of 1024. Header gradient top, and then the bottom color is going to be header gradient bottom. All right, and then the container, we're going to say that's going to have a max width of var site width and a margin of 0 auto. So that'll make anything that we put inside of this subheader, it's going to be max width of 1024 pixel, and we're going to add equal amounts of margin on each side. So if we go to app.js now, we can add the subheader, and we are going to import that. And my handy little tool might help me a little bit here. Nope. So let's get that. And then we're going to say, hello world. Classic. And we'll let that. Okay, so we have something here. Now let's go ahead and we are going to go back. We're going to remove this, and for now, just to see what it looks like in our site, we'll set the height of the subheader to be 400 pixels. Maybe that's excessive. 250. Okay, so let's go and see. All right. That looks all right. So I think now we're ready to start building the exchanges component. So let's go ahead and go back to our editor. And we are going to create a new component in source components, and we're going to call it exchange list, and we're going to create a JSX file, and then we are going to create a functional component called exchange lists and export that. And then let's also create the corresponding CSS file. And remember to call it module, or else we won't get the behavior that we need. All right. And here we're going to want to add props, and let's go and see what we have. So basically what we have is this dot here and the name, and then we have the index and the exchange rate, or the change rate, so to speak. So, and also we have this little header up here, so we're going to want to add that as well. So let's go ahead and start building that out. So we're going to have a div, and we're going to say, and we need to import exchange list.module.css. So this is going to be our container, and we are going to say, so let's just call this container. And then we are going to have, inside of here, we're going to have a header. So we'll say h1 exchanges, and then class equals styles header. Put a return on here so we don't forget it. And then we're going to have our list. So we'll create an unordered list, and inside of here what we are going to do is we're going to want to create a list item for each corresponding entry in this array. So we're going to build that out like we would if it came from an API. So let's go ahead and do that. So we want to say create list items is going to be a function, and it's going to return props exchanges, and then we want to map over each of those. So we're mapping over the exchanges array, and we're taking each exchange and we are going to create a list item with a class name of styles, and I see we made a mistake here as well. List item, and inside of each list item we want to have a name, and we're going to say exchange.name because that corresponds to the data in here. Remember, we're mapping over this array now, so we want to use these indexes or these properties. So we're mapping over this array, and we have this object and we have these properties available to us. So we're trying to get that onto the screen right now. So let's continue doing that. So now we have the exchange name, and we want to add the styles for the index, and we're going to say exchange index. And finally, we're going to add these styles percentage, and we're going to retrieve the actual data from exchange dot change. And then we are going to add or call this function inside of our unordered list. And like that. And let's call it render list items. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our app.js, and we'll retrieve the exchange list, and we will put it inside of our subheader, and we'll check it out. And this is not going to do anything right now, probably going to crash because we haven't given it the exchanges yet. And yeah, it's trying to map over something that doesn't exist, so we need to fix that. So let's go ahead and import the data that we created in an earlier lesson. Data.js, and for now we're just going to say exchanges equals data.exchanges. And let's see if that helps us out a little bit. Still, we have a little bit of an issue. So let's just console log data, make sure that we have what we think we're going to have. So let's go over here and we'll open up our console. We'll check it out. So let's see. Data is an object and it has no properties. So maybe we forgot to save this file once we were done, and looks like we probably did. So yeah, always remember to save your files. All right, so now we have the exchange list here. It doesn't look pretty, but it's a start. So now what we can do is we can go back to our subheader and let's just remove the height, and we'll give this container a padding of 10 pixels. Okay, so now we want to do some style changes on our exchange list. So let's get started with the header, and we want to say that this container is going to have a padding of 8 pixels. Our header is going to be font size 1 rem. The color of the container will be white. And let's grab the UL. We'll give that a class name as well. We'll call that exchange list. And we'll go ahead and we'll say list style type none. We'll say that it's going to have a margin of 0 and padding 0. And we're going to say that, what else? Let's go ahead and do the list item as well. So that's going to be display flex. And we're going to say margin of maybe 8 pixels on the top and bottom. Maybe a little bit less, we'll see. Let's try 10 and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so well, we're getting there. Might have to do a few changes here, but it's not that bad. So let's go ahead and just grab this color here, and we'll say that it's exchange green. So let's go back to our index.css. We'll add another property. And then we'll start and style the different elements of the list item. So the list item name is going to have a fixed width of, let's see, something like that. And then the index will also have a fixed width and that'll be 50 pixels. Maybe more. I'll do 100. And then the name, sorry, the change and the index will both have a color of var exchange green. And I need to spell that correctly. See, percentage, that's the one I'm after. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. All right, so getting there. I want to add the dot next. So let's go back to the exchange list. We're going to add a div class name styles dot. And we're going to go to the CSS file. And we're going to say width 15 pixels, height 15 pixels, border radius 50%, background color exchange green, and position is going to be absolute, and the list item we're going to give that a position of relative. And then we're going to say right 10 pixels. And we'll see what that looks like. And we'll change that to left. So let's go ahead and see. All right, so we need to do a few changes here. So let's go and open our DevTools and just inspect that element. And we're going to say left and we want to give it also 12 maybe. Make it smaller. Yeah, that looks better. And then let's go top. Something like that. Copy this and put it into our editor. And let's see. I want to make the header a little bit smaller. So maybe something like 0.8 or 0.85. And then we'll see what that looks like. All right. I'm pretty happy with that. If we go back to this one, yeah, that looks pretty similar. We'll have to change the header here so it kind of lines up a little bit better. But for now, I think we'll stop there. We'll go ahead and we'll implement the dividend yield stocks and also these cards in the next video. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you there.